Hello, relatives, and welcome to another week of emotional sobriety. I am Xavier Smart, community healer and counselor here at HIR Wellness. And happy Friday! Another week. We made it to the end. Right now, I'm getting our smudge ready before we start. So, if you have your medicines, you can go ahead and grab them. Grab a cup of water, whatever you need to get comfortable before we get started. And here's some smudge for you all, relatives. Awesome. So, again, happy Friday. We made it. Again, my name is Xavier Smart, community healer and counselor here at HIR Wellness Institute. And you are with us today for another week of emotional sobriety. Typically, there's three of us, but as you can see, one of our um, wonderful humans and spirits. Jamie is her energy is being pulled in a different direction today. So today it'll just be John and myself, just going through what we typically do every Friday as we explore emotional sobriety and what that can look like during this time of COVID-19. But before we get started, we'll just do a quick check-in and an introduction of ourselves, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to John.
Yeah, thank you so much, Xavier. I'm doing actually really good today. Felt tired the last few weeks, but for some reason today, I woke up feeling good. So I'm excited and I'm always glad to be here every Friday. And welcome, relatives. Thank you for joining us every single week. And also just feel free to comment down below in the comment section. I am the moderator as well. So we will read those comments as they come in. So feel free to kind of share anything that you want to. And we love when you share, what works for you or how your week has been, or just expressing anything that you want. So please feel free to do that. And just thank you so much.
Thank you, John, for sharing and bringing that into the space. Again, relatives, we do encourage you all just to bring your voices into this space, right? The space is really for all of us, right? To come together every Friday and again explore just what emotional sobriety can look like during COVID-19, right? Again, um, we do this every Friday coming together. My name is Xavier, community healer, counselor here at HIR Wellness. So I am able to be in a lot of different spaces, this being one of them, right? We come together every Friday just to model what a support group, a private support group could look like. If there's enough of you out there that are like, hey, this is interesting, I want to come together in a more intimate group, right? This is kind of what it'll look like. It'll just not be live, right? We just to keep the privacy, keep it more intimate. But again, it's really about us coming together um, every Friday to explore, talk about how we can heal, how we can continue to walk the red road, walk recovery, deal with some of the stressors that we have going on each day, and just really hold space for one another. So, as always, we like to start with an elder's meditation just to kind of get us flowing, to get us grounded, to set the tone for what we're going to talk about for the day. So with that, I'm going to transition it over to John. Would you mind bringing your voice back into the space and just reading that elder's meditation for us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Xavier. And relatives, I will also post the Elders Meditation into the comment section of Facebook Live, just so that way you can feel free to kind of read along with us and, have that so that way if you ever want to come back and watch this video, you can read that as well. So just give me 1 second to put that into the comment section and then I will read. So for the Elders meditation for today, it states, in our modern world today, we may seem like drowning men because of the loss of much of our spiritual tradition. And that's from Thomas Yellowtail Crow. Our spiritual tradition shows us the way to live in harmony, balance, and respect. The tradition taught us how to behave and how to conduct ourselves. The spiritual way taught us to pray and to purify ourselves. Handed down from generation to generation were the teachings about a way of life. Our relationship to Mother Earth and to each other was very clear. The modern world does not relate to spirituality, but to materialism. If we do not allow spirituality to guide our lives, we will be lost, unhappy, and without direction. We are spiritual beings trying to be human, not human beings trying to be spiritual. It is said, know thyself. Grandfather, lead me to spirituality.
That was beautiful. Thank you, John, for reading that and bringing such a wonderful meditation into this space. And I don't have the book with me, but these meditations are taken from Meditations with Native American Elders, The Four Seasons, and it's such again a wonderful book filled with elder meditations. And again, we always like to start with that as a way just to bring us into the space, to bring our elders into this space, right? Where we're all about the intergenerational piece and um, bringing those voices into our sacred spaces, right? So I really enjoyed that meditation, and I think what was there's so many parts that stood out to me. um it it just rings so true in today, and you can see how much consumerism in the material world has really kind of taken precedent over a lot of people, right? Like we're so we always want the next best thing, right? The next I'm an iPhone user, so every time the next one comes out, I'm like, I kind of want it, but at the same time, like, I don't want it, right? So there's always that need to want more when it comes to things, and oftentimes I think we do forget, um we do forget that none of that really matters, right? Like, at the end of the day, all of these things can really be taken away from us. And what really matters is coming back to those spiritual practices, um coming back to some of those things that help ground some of our ancestors, right? And relearning some of those things, right? And it can be difficult and hard to learn some of those ways, for myself, for example. You know there there are traditions there, but there's um some of them haven't really been passed down, right? And because they're not known. So I find myself on my spiritual journey, on my healing journey, wanting to learn, wanting to explore things, but not really knowing where to go, where to grasp some information, right? So I'm just kind of going with the flow and learning what I can, and taking what resonates with my spirit and with my soul, and just kind of utilizing that, and taking note of it, right? So that maybe one day I can pay it forward and pass it to future generations. Um so yeah, we are definitely in a time where I think there is a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and being able to reconnect with our spirits, our traditional indigenous teachings, regardless of where you are on that medicine wheel, right? That those indigenous teachings can really help to ground us, can help us to have the human experience that is one filled and motivated by and led by spirit, right? um compared to ego. So I everything about this entire meditation I loved. What about yourself, John? Was there what stood out to you? What resonated for you?
Yeah, I love this meditation a lot, and I completely agree with you about the materialistic. Because again, I feel like in this modern world, we do focus on materialistic stuff, things you can hold or grab onto. And you also lose sight of spirituality or just, your culture, traditional beliefs. And I completely agree with you. Like sometimes you grew up and you didn't know about it. Um,
Mhm.
so it's really going on that extra journey of really finding out who you are. And I love how it states if we do not allow spirituality to guide our lives, we will be lost, unhappy, and without direction. And I feel like spirituality and that culture portion, it's like finding that sense of belonging. Where do I belong? Where's my home? So I do love that because I myself just started my journey of really learning more about my history and my culture. And I feel like as I continue to learn more about that, I'm more happy and I feel a sense of belonging and I feel less lost, especially in this modern world. So thank you so much. And I love this meditation. And relatives, after reading this meditation, what did you think about it? Feel free to let us know in the comment section. And then I do want to read a comment from Avery Anderson. She says, "Hello, always happy to share space with you all."
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Avery. Happy to have you here as always. Thank you for being here. And we're always so happy to hold the space for each and every one of our relatives, um, to learn from each other, to grow with each other, to heal together, right? To practice CAM, community activated medicine, a term coined by our founder and CEO Leah Denny, which means that the people are the medicine, that we have all the tools that we need within us. But that if we can come together, we can bring it out of each other, right? That we can inform one another, we can learn from one another, and we can heal, um, heal in the way that we need to, right? So I just love being able to really come together and hold this space and just practice that cam practice healing together. Um, and John, your reflection on the meditation. Thank you for bringing that into the space. I totally agree with that. That part of when I think you said something about just a sense of feeling at home, right? Once you start to dive into your own culture and you dive into, and some of those things come up, and you're like, wow, like I feel reconnected. I feel more empowered, right? I think that's so beautiful. And I think, just the community healer in me, right, is always wants to go to the big picture, thinking about the historical trauma pieces and how that's impacted a lot of our communities, and just the inability of connecting with spirituality in a way um, that was, I guess, working for us right before colonization. We had a lot of indigenous ways, and some of those were taken away, some of those are forgotten. And with that, a lot of us, we do feel that sense of loss, that sense of, where do I belong, right? And like you said, as we begin to learn or begin to want to know more about who we are, where we come from, our teachings, our culture, you begin to feel almost this void that's missing, and you begin to feel at home. You feel this sense of peace. So yeah, I definitely appreciate your share for that. So definitely a good meditation. That was awesome. Yeah, I love that. So
Yeah, and I
again,
also
yeah.
wanted to just add that relatives, it's never too late to reconnect with like your culture or,
Mhm.
just your upbringing. Never too late to reconnect with culture and relearn, because I know that sometimes we didn't have that experience, based off of our parents' background and generational, just traumas and stuff like that. So sometimes we may not have those experience, and sometimes you do start to yearn for that, because I know I did, because I started questioning as I got older about it, and it's never too late. That's so important, because sometimes people may feel like, well, all my life I didn't learn about it, so maybe it's not important. But it is very important to really understand your roots and where you came from and just your culture, and just have that understanding. It really fills that void, like what Xavier said.
Yeah.
And I do want to read from Avery. She said that I think without knowing who we are and where we come from, we will always have a void that we are looming to fill.
Mm.
John, you were spot on with your experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
And then Avery also said it really provides us a strong foundation from which to move forward. I
Mm-hmm.
am thankful to have been raised in the Native community. I feel blessed and strong because of it.
Mm.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Avery. I love that. And I love that, you feel very blessed. And I hope that you continue to pass that down to
Mm-hmm.
generations, after you. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Thank you. And something that I, again, think about too is even just some of our elders, right? That some of our indigenous and native elders that have experienced, again, some of those residential boarding schools, right? And have been taught to forget about their history, forget about their teachings, not even taught, but really just treated in a way that forced them to neglect and forget about their teachings and history, and how that's transpired, um, throughout their life, and now they may be in a older, right? And you brought up a very good point, John, that it's never too late, relatives. Despite whatever it is that you may have experienced, that you may have went through, that those teachings, that you deserve to know them, you deserve to embrace them, that they're not wrong, that your spirit gravitates towards them for a reason, and that you are worthy of learning about your culture, about your teachings. You are worthy of learning your native language. Is that something that you are feeling guided towards? And knowing that it's not bad. So I just wanted to put that out there to just really touch base and bring our elders into this space. So thank you, John, for bringing that up, and thank you, Avery, for such a beautiful share as well. It really does, again, provide that foundation, and hopefully we can continue to spread it forward and give it to um, the next generation, right? And they can really begin to see the importance of culture, the importance of connecting with spirit, and really, really utilizing that as a way to navigate through life. So with that, we like to transition into our workbook, right? So again, relatives, we come together every Friday, just to explore recovery, walking the red road, and how we can maintain emotional sobriety during COVID-19. We understand that this time has been so rough for us, right? That it's so much uncertainty, so much worry, a lot of different factors, and that was before COVID, right? We had that already. We woke up, had worries, had things we had to deal with, and then you had a pandemic on it, and that just makes everything 10 times worse, right? And then you think about those those of our relatives, those of us that are walking in recovery, and you add another stressor, right? It's like, okay, well, now I'm really, really struggling, right? So this space is really to come together and talk about how we can manage and deal with this the struggles, right? The challenges that we're experiencing during this time. And we always like to work out of a book called, let's see if you can see it, Maintaining Emotional Sobriety During COVID-19, Transforming Trauma with Post-Traumatic Growth. And this is by Tion Dayton. So each week we just go through this book, Relatives, and we explore a lot of different topics, right? Um, during our we spent just a great deal really exploring how to create safety during this time. How can we put this time in a box, right? You see John and I in a box. So how can we put this time in a box and say, hey, this is only temporary, that things are definitely going to shift, they are going to elevate, right? That this is a beginning. There will be a new beginning. It'll be, take some getting used to, right? But that this time that we're in, that this is only temporary, and that we will get to something better, something, a newer beginning. So last week we took the time to begin exploring um, self-medicating and numbing, self-medicating. So what we last week, we just read, right, what that even is, like what is self-medicating, right? How that comes about. So this idea that we utilize, it could be anything: drugs, alcohol, food, sex, fill in the blank, right? As things to help deal with stress, right? It's like, oh, I'm feeling something. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to stress eat, right? Like, I'm feeling stressed. I don't know what else to do. I'm gonna grab something and I'm just gonna eat, or I'm going to, drink, or fill in the blank, right? Utilizing those things as a way to bring us back to a state of feeling good, right? So we spent some time just really getting into the beginning parts of self medication, and what that looks like, and some of the unprocessed grief or the hidden grief that can be associated with that. So we had some of those things could be sudden angry outbursts, chronic negativity, chronic anxiety, feeling a strong sense of guilt, right? Self harming, depression, low mood, shame, right? So just a lot of different things that can come into play when we're feeling, um, a strong sense of hidden grief, right? We may not know that grief is there, but it's there. So today, what we're going to do is just talk more about self medication, but more specifically, the wheel of self medication, right? And what that looks like, um, and the cycle, right? That it is a cycle. And then we'll also just kind of drop some reflection questions in the comments for you all, just to review. So I'll start just by reading through the wheel of self medication. So it starts with, person person has pain, trauma that disrupts the inner world, self medicates with drugs, alcohol, etc. That could be sex, food, gambling, right? And then next, you have the uses addictive substance or behavior to manage inner pain and achieve balance or relief. Next, you have the substance relieves the pain temporarily, but begins to cause anxiety, depression, shame, guilt, anger, right? Fill in the blank. And then next, you have the addict uses substance or behavior to numb depression depression. And then the last thing is that the pain and life complications increase, causing emotional and psychological trauma. And then it just happens all over again, right? Um, so before we dive a little bit deeper into that, we'll drop some reflection questions into the comments for you all relatives, just to think about, to just explore on your own time, or you can share within the comment section, right? And again, this space is really about us coming together, about us holding space for one another, so that we all can learn, grow together, heal together, right? um so in terms of reflecting, right, what is your go-to for self-medication, especially during COVID-19? What does this go to give to you? So what do you gain out of it? What does this cost you? What does it take from you? How much trouble would you have modifying this behavior? And then how much trouble would you have giving this behavior up? So again, relatives, those are just some questions that you can just kind of reflect on and think about in terms of your own use, right? Whatever that may be. Again, so again, just going back to now the wheel of self medication, we can just kind of walk through it one by one, right? So we have the kind of the first step in the cycle, or the first, I don't even know, it's not step, but the first area in the cycle is that we experience a pain and trauma that just disrupts our entire inner world, right? So our body becomes dysregulated. So we experience something. Let's take COVID for example. This threw everything off balance internally, right? We had to readjust. We had to, it just really um took us off guard. There's You can't go anywhere, you can't see people that you usually see, you have to work from home. The kids are at home as well, right? So um your inner workings are just dysregulated, right? So you may find yourself feeling constantly angry, aggravated, sad, lonely, right? So all these different feelings, which can then lead to self-medicating in whatever form that looks like for you, relatives, right? So for me, I would say that COVID, my self-medication was definitely drugs, right? And that was something that I leaned into for my own use during COVID-19, and coping and my whole inner workings. I was like, I don't know, right? So that was something that I gravitated towards, right? And then we go on to the next step, using that substance or behavior to manage the inner pain and achieve balance or relief, right? So it's this aspect of I'm going to use this to gain relief from all this stress and all this anxiety and everything that I'm feeling within. This substance is going to do it for me and bring me back to a state of balance. But what happens is that it relieves the pain temporarily, right? But we begin to see that depression, anxiety, shame, guilt begins to show up, right? That begins to come to the surface as we use those substances to bring about that sense of relief or balance. And then what happens is that the cycle continues, is that we go back to that substance or another substance in order to numb the pain that we're feeling, right? So it's like, okay, we're already feeling dysregulated inside. We're using this substance to bring us back to a sense of balance, but it's only working temporarily. So now I feel a sense of shame and guilt. So now I'm just going to use again, and this is going to help to numb what I'm feeling. And then from there, that causes complications in our life, right? Increases causing emotional and psychological trauma, right? So again, we might find that things in our lives may begin to crumble, if you will, or just kind of we might find that we're not working at our best ability. We're ignoring the kids or choosing, you know, the substance or the behavior over, um, you know, what it is that we need to get done at the time. So again, it's really this cycle that continues to go on, right? Um, so with that and exploring that and going through that, I just want to take a pause, take a breath, right? And go shift to John. Is there any comments, any thoughts on just what are you sitting with in terms of the wheel of self-medication?
So before I add about me, I do want to read from Avery. She
Uh-huh.
said that I use edibles from time to time for physical pain, causes brain fog and sometimes anxiety, but also causes me to be relaxed and nicer. So it's almost a wash. I don't consider it a drug, so it feels like it's a tricky issue. And then she also said that I used to use alcohol um, from time to time to relax, but over COVID, I realized it's not really my thing and I don't like it much anymore. And thank you so much for sharing, Avery. We really appreciate that.
Yeah,
And then,
absolutely. Go ahead, John.
yep. So for me, when I was thinking about this, I know especially during the beginning of pandemic, just so much transition. A lot of this, you know, a lot of people have to transition completely their lives. I know for me, I was working and seeing people out in the community, and then because of the pandemic, everything shifted to virtual services and working from home. For me, that was super difficult to really deal with that. And I noticed that at the beginning of the pandemic, what had happened for me was um, I was like turning to like I'm a person where I'm a stress eater, so I started turning to food for all this coping for just everything that changed. So much shift has gone by and stuff like that, and all this restriction. You can't do this, you can't do that. So for me, it was definitely a huge, challenge just staying home and doing your work. And for me, it's difficult because home means my own personal time to do whatever I want. And also being home, there's more distraction because you have family members and kids around. So it's harder to focus as well. Um, and I know that many people still struggle with that, especially if you're working from home and you have lots of young kids or even kids who are virtual. And many kids are struggling with that. So oftentimes, if you see your kids struggling, you pick that up, and you get stressed out from it too. Or like if you're on a Zoom meeting and you have kids running around in the background, it can cause a lot of distress as well. So for me, it was, definitely food was definitely a huge problem for me because I noticed myself just eating more or, you know, and then I became really depressed from it because I'm just like, after a while, it helps temporarily, but it doesn't really solve the problem at all. And then I noticed myself being more depressed from the situation and turning to, well, I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay down in bed, or I just don't want to get up at all, or I don't want to work anymore because I have to work at home. And then you get really angry because you feel like you're stuck, there's no outlet. Um, so for me, what had happened after that was I started spending money crazy because for some people, spending is like a coping skill. It's not good. I don't recommend it, but I noticed myself like just, if I can't leave to go places, I'm gonna go shop on Amazon and add everything that you see. Amazon's really great with finding things that you don't need. So that's what happened to me was I started seeing little things that I don't necessarily need, but after you see it over and over, you're just like, maybe I do need that. Let me add that to my cart. Um, or you're just like, well, if I can't go and shop for clothes, I will start looking online. And so for me, I turn towards that as well. It's hard because sometimes you develop these, it's coping skills, but is it necessarily the healthiest coping skill? Maybe not. Uh, but at that moment, it helped relieve that stress or that trauma or that depression that you're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, John, for for sharing, bringing your experience and your voice into this space, and thank you, Avery, as well, for sharing and bringing your voice and your experience into this space as well. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the cycle. We all notice it, right? We can see, you know, that hey, yeah, I'm using something temporarily, but now I feel horrible. Oh no, I feel, you know, I feel this now that I'm doing it. I know I shouldn't be, and because I know I shouldn't be, now I need to use something else to mask this pain, right? So yeah, it's definitely one of those things, right, that I think being able to, the fact that we are having this conversation, the fact that we are bringing it to the surface, the awareness level is so powerful, right? And that is truly, truly the first step in helping to change and shift and elevate to a much healthier or yeah, a much healthier, I guess you can say, um, coping strategy, right? We want to bring it to the awareness and shed light onto it and say, hey, I see you, and I'm bringing you to the light. Like, I'm not going to ignore you. I'm going to, you know, again, bring you up and talk about you and give you that attention, right? That, hey, you know, we're friends. I see you. We can be buddies. So that we can begin to open the door for healing to take place, right? For other opportunities to come our way so we can begin to shift, right? um so for me, I think what helped to break this cycle was really, you know, again, that awareness piece, but being able to lean on others, right? And letting them know so that they can hold me accountable, like, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm noticing that this usage is causing me some anxiety. You know, don't let me, don't, you know, try to hold me accountable, right? So leaning into people, and then replacing it with something else, right? So you know, oftentimes for some of us, are able to, I guess, you know, go quote cold turkey, right? We can just kind of cut it out and then we're fine. But for others, it may be difficult to do that, right? So it's about how can we, what can we replace the behavior with, or how can we even just kind of reduce harm, right? Decrease the amount that we're using, right? If it's like you're noticing that, hey, I'm feeling this way, you know, 5 days out of the week, and 5 days out of out of the days, I'm using that substance to self-medicate, right? You have that in your awareness now. Now it's about, okay, now I want to get down to maybe 4 days, right? That is amazing if you're to get down to 4 days, right? And then you can begin to see, like, maybe I can try three, right? And just taking those steps um is so powerful, right? To give ourselves that gentleness, that kindness that we deserve when we are trying to essentially, you know, regulate ourselves and regulate our bodies, right? Because again, it can be difficult. Our inner world is going through a lot, and it can be hard to bring it back to a state of peace, a state of being grounded, in a state of balance. So it's like, what can we do? How can we replace it, right? And one of those things can even be just coming to this group, coming to our Her Wellness Facebook page and saying like, hey, I'm having a really, really tough time right now, and you know, I can't I could stress eat. I could go and gamble. I could pick up that bottle and use that substance, right? But instead what I'm going to do is replace that, and I'm going to go watch an emotional sobriety video. I'm going to watch a R&R video, reflections and resiliency video. I'm gonna watch a yoga, trauma sensitive yoga video, and replace that behavior, right? Um, because it's all about, again, the pattern, the repetition of things when it comes to bringing ourselves back to a state of relief, right? We think about, again, our when our bodies are just out of whack, right? It's um, what can we utilize to, what patterns can we do to bring ourselves back, right? So I just wanted to say that and touch on that. um, and then I know we put those questions in there for our relatives to just reflect on and think about, right? Some of your go-to self-medications, and just exploring and thinking about, hey, like, what trouble would this cause me to give up this behavior? What would it look like modifying this behavior? So yeah. So John, I'm curious for yourself. Um, how are you able to, I guess, kind of disrupt that cycle, right?
Yeah.
What did you utilize, or how do you disrupt that cycle when you notice it?
So for me, I noticed that I felt trapped. Like there was no outlet for my emotions or how I was feeling. Because it kind of brought back like just oftentimes, you go back to those habits that you're used to. And it's hard to create new habits and make it into something that's normal. So a lot of those things were things of my past that was comforting for me. So I really challenged that and I started writing down my thoughts. And again, love journaling, love poetry. And for me, I didn't do poetry. I love poetry, but I started journaling a little bit. I did like a weekly journal, again, relative, all of these coping skills that we're talking about. It's really up to you how you want to do it, but it's about that consistency. Uh, because if you don't do it, or if you do it like very inconsistently, it may not be as effective. So me, I try to do it like on a weekly basis of just how has my week been. And I also did a lot of reflections. I love self-reflection at the end of each night. I always do like a self-reflection. You can also use that as a way to journal as well. If I had, I could have done that, but what I did was I did a lot of um, self-reflection just out loud in my head of just like, what went well for my day and what could have been better. And then just how can I improve for the next day. So for me, I love self-reflection, and self-reflection really helps me understand myself and what went wrong, because when you're not able to pinpoint what went wrong, you can't make those changes in your life. Because if you're able to pinpoint like, hey, this is what happened and this is how I felt during that moment, next time let me try to be more aware of it so that way I can do something else. And also deep breathing for me is something that I really learned to do. This deep breathing is very beneficial, especially if you're able to catch yourself before you get really deep into your feelings, or that feeling where it becomes out of control, where you're not able to use those tools that you are aware of. So for me, it's just that self-awareness of, well, I'm starting to feel a little anxiety. Let me just take a pause and take a step back and reflect, and also just do a deep breathing, because I know if I don't and I allow myself to get to that stage where it becomes uncontrollable, it's like all of my toolboxes are just out the window. So that was very beneficial, just that journaling on a weekly basis, and then also that daily self reflection and that positive self talk. because oftentimes we don't do enough positive self-talk. We do a lot of negative self-talk on a daily basis, but we forget about the positive. It's okay to be kind to yourself, especially during those moments of negativity, because I feel like it's society and just everywhere that, we're not taught to talk good about ourselves. We're taught to look at the negativity. So, it's not wrong or it's not bad to compliment yourselves or say good things about yourself. Because when you say good things about yourself, even if you don't believe it right away, over time it does really make a change. It does matter, because you have to love yourself and you're unique, you're different. Just understanding that, you see things from your own lens, not from others' opinions, and that your voice matters. And just really try doing that positive self talk. Huge fan of it. And I know that many relatives struggle with that. And just understand that it doesn't happen overnight. Uh, it's definitely challenging, especially when you're first starting. Because I know for me, it took me roughly around probably 6 months, but I was very inconsistent with it when I first started, because the first week or two, I felt like, well, it doesn't make a change. I don't feel any different about it. So then I kind of stopped doing it because I felt like it didn't work. And then after a while, I kind of went back to it and started doing it more consistently. And as I kind of stuck with it over time, I did notice a change, and it does matter. It will change. It will get better, and you will start to believe it because you have to kind of reflect back with it. When you're seeing these positive self-talk out loud or reading it, reflect on it and sit with it. Because if you're just reading it just to read it won't make too much of a change. But if you really take that time to sit back and sit with it and really listen to it and honor yourself as you're reading these positive affirmations, quotes, or talking positive about yourself, and really sitting with that and allowing it to marinate, it really does. Yeah. Thank you so much, Xavier. What about you?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, John. Um, that would, yeah, I definitely agree with that, right? I enjoy positive affirmations and self talk, and being able to lean into those as well. Something I used to do is just kind of play it, like there's tons on YouTube's, right, that you can look for. They have positive affirmations for anxiety, for depression, for anger, to fill in the blank, whatever it is that you're looking for. YouTube, like, it has everything. It's like a big grocery store of videos. um so I would utilize the videos and just kind of play them while I sleep, right? And just kind of let it, sink in. Let my unconscious mind, subconscious, I don't know which one, let my mind basically take them in while I sleep. And I would find that, um, after a few weeks, you would feel and notice a difference, right? You would feel that strength, that power about yourself, like, yeah, like I can do this, like, that confidence in yourself. So that's something that I utilized, and for me, being able to find ways to really connect with my ancestors has been helpful for me, right? That's been grounding. So again, coming back full circle as we talk about circles and cycles, right? For me, it's been helpful to um, learn, I guess, if you will, some of those spiritual practices, but really connecting with my ancestors. And I do that through multiple different ways, right? Whether that be, I'm going to really set up a ceremony and I'm gonna light a candle and put out a glass of water, right? Or if I'm cooking something, I'm gonna, again, make it a ceremony where I am, you know, um, lighting candles, have water out and playing some music, dancing, right? Have my medicines going and really, inviting ancestors to be with me in that moment. And I find comfort in that. I find peace in that. And that's been something that's really been, that I've been gravitating towards as of recently, and find that to be very, very grounding for myself, and shifting away, shifting towards patterns that are spirit uplifting, if you will, right, rather than spirit decreasing. So yeah, those are ways that have worked for me. And relatives, as always, we encourage you all to just, what works for you, and what do you feel helps you during your tough times, right? What do you feel that you can include in your just in a pattern, right? If you notice you're having this cycle of self medication, what can we include to kind of um have that behavior or that substance, what can we substitute it with, if you will? So yeah, any comments or anything, John?
Yeah, Avery said that she likes journaling, coloring, taking naps, and reading, and also recently tried daily affirmations and said that they are powerful. She also mentioned smudging is something that she has learned to embrace a lot more over the past 2 to 3 years.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Avery. I feel you 100% on the naps. Listen, a good nap will do it for you. It will. You listen. I'm here. I feel it. So, relatives, that's something too. Our body needs to rest, right? So give yourself permission to take a nap, to slow down, to say like, okay, I'm gonna let this body of mine, let it recharge, let it reset, so that I can think clearly, so that I can feel better, right? Oftentimes that may be just what it is that we need, is sleep, is rest. And we think about just declining health and things like that. And oftentimes, if we go to the doctor, they do ask, when was the last time you got some good sleep, or how is your sleeping pattern, right? And how that in turn can impact so many other areas in our lives. So think about your sleep patterns, relatives, and how that may be impacting, some of your behaviors, your moods, right, and things like that. So yeah, this was a wonderful, wonderful topic and discussion um, that we explored today, and I just love being here with each and every one of you. And I know we could be here for another like 30 minutes to an hour, but it is Friday, and we want everyone to enjoy their Friday. So we can go ahead and we can do our checkout, right? So let's see, we can do, since we're talking so much about positive affirmations and about the self, right? So I guess our checkout can be, what's one thing you love about yourself? And relatives, you can go ahead, put that in the comments, share with us, feel free to share if you would like. And then John, so we can check out with that, what's one thing
Yeah.
you love about yourself?
Oh, I love that. One thing I love about myself, it wasn't always one thing that I didn't grow up liking it. Was just really loving myself, like just truly being Hmong, being a first
Mm,
generation Hmong American. Because just growing up, in school, I got bullied for being different, and being told that, you don't belong here. And so, because of that, I really suppressed, or I kind of shied away from my culture and just everything about that. And I started avoiding, talking to my native tongue, and stuff like that. So just one thing I really truly love now is just really embracing my culture, my language, and I'm actually learning slowly how to read and write in my language, which is the Hmong language. So it's definitely challenging, but I love it, and I truly want to be more fluent in terms of like reading and also writing in my language, not just speaking it.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you, John, for sharing. Yeah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Do we have any relatives in the comments?
Yeah, Avery said
Okay.
that I love that I am very open and honest.
Yes. Thank you, Avery, for sharing and bringing your voice into the space. And so my one thing, um, I would have to say that I love, um, I would say my resiliency, or yeah, I would have to say my resiliency. Um, I find it rather intriguing that I'm constantly pushing forward and pushing myself to um, just to either learn things to help myself grow, um, or allowing myself to feel through some hard stuff, some hard feelings, and allowing that to push me in a way that is needed. And yeah, so I would say I appreciate my resiliency and the resiliency that has been passed down from my ancestors. So with that, relatives, again, we appreciate each and every one of you being here with us every Friday. For those of you, if this was your first time, thank you for being here, spending this time with us. And you know, we will be here every Friday until the end of April. So April 30th will be our last live, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll be back. So we won't be gone for too long. But again, this time is really allotted to us coming together, um, to share in community, to share laughter, to share tears, to share whatever needs to be shared, so that we can grow together, heal together, know that you are enough, that you are resilient, that you are worthy of all the love, you are worthy of learning your culture, your language, and that you are uniquely you. And we thank each and every one of you again, relatives, for being here and just spending the time with us. So, with that, we hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the sun. It's still sunny. Oh, it's still sunny. So, we hope you all enjoy the sun. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week.